Hi, welcome to Studio 411. I'm your host, Larry Dasilva, and we have a great show for you today. I was thinking about a bucket list of things or places that you wish you could have gone if you had an opportunity. For me, the probably one and two would have been the old Vegas of the late 1950s, and also another one would have been to go back in time to the old Brooklyn, New York, where the Dodgers played back in their heyday before they moved to Los Angeles. Then with our next guest, I would say probably number three on that list would be to be able to time travel back to the late 50s, early 60s, the early heyday in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania of American Bandstand, which in those days used to be on Monday through Fridays, I think in the afternoons, if I recall, before they moved to California. And our guest this evening, besides currently being an actress that you have seen in shows like Glee, How I Met Your Mother, also in movies such as The Backup Plan with Jennifer Lopez, and countless commercials and appearances, is a lady that goes back to those days, and we'll talk a little bit about those days back with Bandstand and also what she's up to these days. Bunny Gibson. Bunny, welcome to the program.
Hi there, Larry. Great to be here.
Thank you. A pleasure to have you here. Again, as I was saying, it's a great period of time that you've lived during some terrific times, and we'll start, as I'm sure most interviews that you do, we'll start back in those days. Born in Jersey City, New Jersey. Now, how did you gravitate to the Philadelphia area? Is that did you, or do I have that incorrect? Not born in Jersey City?
Yeah,
Oh,
I was
okay.
born in the Margaret Hague Institute for
Uh-huh.
Unwed Mothers. My
Ah.
mom was a pioneer in keeping me when at that time, they try to take the kids, if you don't have a father, away from the mothers. And she went to court and she fought the judge and she kept me. And then after we lived in Jersey City, we went to Philadelphia.
There you
And
go.
then going to Philadelphia changed the course of my life.
Absolutely. I don't know if too many daytime dance shows in Jersey City, but anyway.
Right, exactly.
I know we had one up here in the Hartford area back in the day, but I think it was actually a forerunner, or not a forerunner, came as a result of Dick Clark and his efforts with, of course, Bandstand on the ABC television. When did you and your mom move to Philadelphia? What age?
Well, when I was about 6, and let me turn off my little phone here so I can give you my full
There
attention.
you go.
About 6 years of age, I moved to Darby, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so a suburb of Philadelphia then. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And I got lost right away. I was right around the block, but couldn't find 511 Chestnut Street. The police picked me up, ended up in the police station, and they gave me ice cream, and my parents came and got me.
There you go. Now,
But
how did you to go ahead a couple of years now in your not quite teenager, but close to it, 12, 13 years old? How did that whole thing come about? Tell us, because I find it fascinating when we can speak to folks who knew people, many of whom may no longer be with us, or can kind of give firsthand accounts of eras in both our country and our world history that some people can't relate to. Now, obviously, late 50s, you're in Philadelphia, there's this new show, Bandstand. What was that like to turn on the set and watch that, in those days? Because a lot of people today either don't know about American Bandstand, which is hard for me to believe, or don't understand that it was a 5 times a week show, airing. And I don't even know, was it live in those days?
no, we taped it. It was
It
Kinescope,
was
and
Kinesco.
it was at a time when we were the first rock and roll revolution in America. The teenagers, there was Elvis. We had buying power. We got records, and it was really a big deal. But I hadn't heard of American Bandstand until I went with my girlfriend to the Yaden Swim Club. And I witnessed, it was Arlene and Kenny, and I didn't know who they were. They were standing there, and a big rush of teenagers came at them, screaming their name and wanting their autograph and taking pictures. And I said to Nora, I said, who are they? And she said, don't you know? Arlene and Kenny, they go to Bandstand. What's American Bandstand? She said, it's on every day after school. Go home. It's on Channel 6, WFIL. Well, that is what I did. And I'll tell you, Larry, when I saw that show, it was my answer. I had come from a difficult family life, but I always knew there was something big out there. And I saw those kids dancing and how happy they were. And I said, I am going. And that's what I did. I may have gotten lost when I was 6 years old, but I didn't get lost finding American Bandstand.
Exactly, exactly. And probably of anybody, as I was thinking as we approached the interview, you really, other than, of course, Dick Clark, have really, you know, with a lot of hard work, nothing, as they say, was really handed to you, have, you know, parlayed this into a full-fledged career. Obviously, then the next step, as we'll talk a little later, as an actress and some other things you did in between. But again, just, you know, amazing. I mean, people that are old enough to remember the show remember, you know, some of the dancers you speak of. But again, unfortunately, a lot of them remember, if they do at all, the California years where, yeah, they'd have their little dance contest, but it was kind of hard to, you know, appreciate because it was like only once a week. You guys, it was kind of like Buffalo Bob and Howdy Doody and these shows that kids would run home to and then, you know, would be glued. I'm amazed that, as you said, you didn't even know what the show was until your girlfriend pointed out those people that happened to show up at the club.
Well, exactly, and it was a show that we had. We were probably one of the most popular shows on television. Had 20 million viewers, and we had fan mail from kids, teens all over the country, and they would bus teens to come and see us. I mean, it was a huge deal. It was amazing. We were the microcosm of all rock and roll and music, and the biggest and the best, from Paul Anka to Frankie Avalon to Fabian to Chubby Checker to Chuck Berry. Everybody came to our hub, our Bandstand Studio B, and came to us, and we saw them.
Amongst many others, you left out one that I think was one of the reasons why you actually tried to get on the show, was Bobby Rydell.
Very good.
Yeah,
Yes, Bobby Rydell, Wild One.
Yeah.
And that's why I chose. They advertise after the TV show, and I'm watching Bandstand, and I'm dancing with my banister, and my dog is barking, and I'm saying, that's it, I'm going. I called Nora, and I said, this is it. I'm going. You want to come with me? And she said, no, my mom would never let me do that. My mother was working at the time, so I could get away with it. But I went down there, and I saw Bobby Rydell with his big full head of hair. He was just gorgeous.
The only thing I'm trying to think nowadays, and even that has ended, that would be comparable to what you experienced was there was a show that ran on MTV for about a decade or so where a lot of kids would flock to New York and Manhattan, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe somebody on the crew remembers what that show was. But anyway, it was... say it out loud.
The
You know
Saturday Night Beach Night show.
Oh, Total Request Live. It was a show that Carson Daly hosted, and that was kind of a more modern version, as close as you could get, in my opinion, of like what it must have been for you guys. You know, again, I'm sure it was taped, but again, it had that kind of like instantaneous live feel. But again, that was kind of an homage in some ways to what you folks did with American Bandstand, for sure. Of course, Elvis never appeared on Bandstand. I think he might have done a phone interview.
Yes,
Right.
Elvis did a phone interview.
Yeah, I mean, they were very...
we were like, we were big like the Grammys and the Music Awards, all in one, right there at 46 and Market Street in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
It was all happening.
And actually, let me point this out here. I'll let our camera people get a shot of it. Here's a shot, if we can get a shot of that, of a young Bunny Gibson circa 1961, because you were on Bandstand for what, about 3 years, from
Well,
59 until
about 2.5 years.
2.5 years, yeah. And there was what, an age limit in those days?
Yes,
Yeah,
on we needed to be. It was from 14 to 18.
yeah.
However, I went when I was 13. Not only me, Justine when she was 13. Quite a few of us, but we looked more mature, so we managed to get through the guard. A lot of times, though, I mean, many other kids were asked for their birth certificates.
Birth certificate, my goodness. Now they'll just get out their phone and say, see, there's my birth certificate. We do everything via phone now.
Right.
Bunny Gibson, actress, as well as a Bandstand regular dancer from back late 50s, early 60s, joining us here on this episode of Studio 411. Also, we'll talk a little bit later with Bunny. She's tireless efforts advocate for the homeless, foster children, education, which of course is always good to see given the state of education in our country. It seems like it always needs some attention, but we'll talk a little bit with Bunny about that. Married at 16 years of age, your then future husband actually saw you on Bandstand, and tell us a little how that all transpired.
Well, he watched the show and he actually fell in love with me. And he practiced dancing with his niece Robin and went down to get into bandstand. But he was 21, and again, the age was cut off was 18. So he wasn't able to get in, but he managed to get my phone number and gave me a call. And we went out, and it was puppy love. Do you have a picture of him? I have it right over here.
Oh, show me the picture. Yeah, no, I don't have a picture.
There we go.
There we go. What do we got? Ah, nice. Okay, there you go. And you folks were married for about what, 6, 8 years, correct, or a little longer
Yeah,
than that?
7 years.
Yeah.
It's probably predictable. You get married that young. But we had 2 daughters, Angel and Maria, and that made it all worth it. And it was, like I said, puppy love.
I always have a theory, and I tell younger people when somehow it gravitates onto relationships, that anyone, and I've known many in my time, even I can include myself, anyone who gets married prior or between that, we'll even go 16 to about 22, 24, anywhere in there. It's astonishing, the divorce rates in this country.
Yeah.
Astonishing.
Yeah.
It's not all Steve and Edie, if you catch my drift. They're not all,
Right.
matches made in heaven. And again, things happen for a reason, and we try. I guess all we can do is just grow from it.
And these days, when you think of it, if you wanted to meet someone who was a star on television, you really can't hardly do it. You'd be a stalker.
Yeah.
So again, the 50s lent itself to him being able to meet me and us being able to get married at that time.
That in itself, that he was able to get word to you, that's a story almost like an episode of a drama / sitcom. A couple of things I wanted to talk about that you really don't hear too much about. I had read this in doing my research. Even in those days, not surprisingly, again, if people watch old kinescope and later videotapes of Bandstand, probably changed in the mid to late 60s. Again, there was a certain segregation even in, whether you want to say Philadelphia, in those days, where there were no black dancers in those days, at least not that I'm aware of, correct?
Well, no, not that I was aware of either. I mean, there may have been a couple here or there, but it was never focused on. And actually, the first black dancer to dance with a white person was here in Los Angeles, and that was Famous Hooks, and that was about 72.
Wow. There was a story, if you recall, about an acquaintance, a friend that I guess lived either across the street or nearby from Bandstand, and recently when there was a big celebration of commemorating the old Studio B, as you referred to, in a plaque that we'll show in a minute here, that I have a photo. Tell us that story. I thought it was a terrific story of a person that saw the performers come in and out, but never could get in to actually participate in the joy of what it must have been like to be on the program.
Well, Well, that was Billy, and she lived next door to Sylvester, and they lived right across the bandstand studio and parking lot. And a few years ago, I said, "Let me knock on these doors. I wonder if these people still live there that lived there when we danced." And Billy answered the door, and she actually remembered me, and she was just delighted. And she was a black lady, and Sylvester was a black man. Now, Billy, it was okay with her that she would see only the white dancers go in because she would see the black performers go in the side door.
Right.
And then she'd say she'd run inside and watch our black and white TV. And she was fine. And she was such a sweetheart. And one of the best things I've done in my life is to bring Billy to Bandstand, and we were having an anniversary party. I said, "Billy, it's time you go to Bandstand." And this little sweet lady, she came with me, and then there was a newspaper article on her, and then she was a big star in the neighborhood. Now, Sylvester, who lived next to her, he wasn't happy about it. He had nothing good to say about the segregation. You know, when you look back at those times that they had Soul Train.
Oh, sure. Later on, yeah, Soul Train revolutionized, and again, for those who were too young to remember Soul Train, I mean, that was great because I can remember, it's not a trivia question, although it could be. I think one of the first in reverse white performers that ever appeared on Soul Train was a gentleman who had a song, an instrumental called Scorpio, a guy named Dennis Coffey. I don't know if you remember that song. If you heard it, you'd recognize it. And then later, Bowie and a few other people. But again, that was just the way it was. But obviously, in the case of Bandstand, it was something that I'm sure now in retrospect we all agree, could have been remedied a lot sooner. And I don't know that, it was just a sign of the times, as the song goes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there was talk that it was segregated before, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it was a sign of the times.
Bunny Gibson, actress, former bandstand dancer, joining us here for the hour on Studio 411. www.bunnygibson.com for more information. Dick Clark once called you, quote, a national symbol. So again, to go back to my earlier statement about how you, amongst all the others, I know you mentioned a couple of the other dancers, whatever, that I remember hearing about as, a boy growing up, et cetera, et cetera. But again, you kind of transcended them, with all due respect to them, because again, you've done so much with your life in terms of the entertainment field. And but again, it was some hard times, I'm sure. You had at one point of being a single mother. I found fascinating that you were an award-winning sculptor. I have to hear about that.
Yes.
Where did this talent come from? Multi-talented Bunny Gibson.
Just taught myself.
Yeah.
I had my two girls, and this after my husband and I divorced, and I wanted to do something where I would be home. And I went to an art show, saw the metal sculpture, and I just loved it. Took a course in a high school, and soon after, I was carrying up these big oxygen acetylene tanks to my kitchen, and in which I transformed to also my art studio, and I made humongous things, trees and sculptures for the wall, and I loved it. And guess kind of a pioneer back then, because I would be sitting with, if there were a guy next to me, and they'd look at him and say, nice work. And I say, wait a minute, I did it. And they go, what?
Now, did you ever have like an exhibit, or do you still have any pieces from back in the day that, you could actually have like a little art exhibit?
I only have a few pieces. I'm looking at one. I don't know how I'd manage to, but it's quite beautiful. And I did go to the art shows all the time. And perhaps at another time in my life, I will get my tanks and go to it again just to see what I could create.
Absolutely.
I loved the copper and dipping the copper into the water and seeing all the beautiful colors that happen from the heat and the cold.
Now, also, again, during that time, I believe now we're talking like the early to mid 70s, you obviously then studied acting. Again, tell us, Stella Adler, world-renowned acting teacher,
Oh,
along with a
yeah.
couple of others. But that was in New York. How did that, you gravitated to New York at one point in your life to live
Oh,
or just to work?
well, what happened was, and I just watched the show Listen to Me, Marlon, where he and Stella Adler, and I thought, oh my heavens, 6 degrees of separation. I was with Stella Adler. I have a picture with her. And what happened was they were auditioning for the rock and roll show of the 1950s in Philadelphia. And I was doing my sculpture, and my girlfriend came over and she told me about it. And then actually I didn't want to go. I was busy doing what I was doing. She insisted that I go to the audition. So I went, and they were, of course, extremely excited about me. And that was it. I got the job, and there I was in that show with Chubby and all the performers. Teresa Brewer. It was very exciting. So from that, I joined a modeling agency, and then became a model in Philadelphia. And because I wanted to be a better model, I took an acting class at the Philadelphia Company, which I was so scared. Remember, it was Irene Baird, and I was sitting in the circle of actors the first time that we had to go up. And Irene, she had in her class, I mean, there were big top people in soap operas and everything, and I waited to go up last to do my monologue. And I was sure that she was going to go, Bunny, I'm sorry, but you don't really belong in this class.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't.
Wow.
So I ended up being in her class and progressing more and more and more. And eventually, Stella Adler, Warren Robertson. I studied a lot in New York and then out here in LA.
And at that
And
time
it's
too,
been wonderful for me.
you got into commercials, so you did a lot of national as well as local spots. So again, tenacity is the word that I think of. And again, up until the last few weeks or whatever, we'd never met, we'd never spoken. But again, it's just whatever it is that you try, you seem to somehow make a career or a part of your life, and you seem to have a little bit of the Bunny Midas touch. I don't know.
Oh, well, when I came out to California, I went to Dick Clark Productions to see Dick. Knocked on the door, and he looked at me. He didn't even say hello. He said, "I knew I'd see you again." So I thought that was quite interesting. Out of all the dancers, he kind of knew when he saw me, she's going to keep on going.
There you go. I'm just holding this up for you for a second. I'm gonna show the audience here again a shot of Bunny and of course the legendary Dick Clark, which again we had singer actress Donna Lauren on the program several months back, and of course Donna kind of came along almost like succeeded you in the sense that as Dick then moved to California, then Donna became like the Dr. Pepper girl, and then got a recording contract, and then started doing appearances with Dick on the program, some specials he did. So again, kind of another, as I call it, lady of bandstand, and of course, just had tremendous things to say about Dick Clark. Again, Dick passed away in 2012. Never met the man, but again, when you have people that you kind of respect and idolize as a person, young person growing up, when they pass, you're kind of like left a little, almost like speechless, like you don't know. Wow,
Yeah.
maybe it's because you kind of sense your own mortality down the road. You say, wow, this one's gone or this one's gone, and but I mean, he was. I mean, you could write a book about him, I'm sure. I mean,
Well, there are many books.
yeah.
I'm in like about 8 of them regarding Dick. But I don't think there's anybody out there that could have had Bandstand last for 40 years. I mean, the man was incredible. But I always need to give homage to the man who created the show, that without him, there wouldn't be me, Dick, or anybody, and that was Bob Horn. It
Bob
was
Horn.
his idea. He went to the stations at kids dancing to records, would be a good show, and they thought, "Oh, you're crazy. That could never happen." And he was right. And Dick was fortunate enough when Bob Horn left the show for difficult reasons. He was doing a radio show at the time, and then they pulled him up to replace Bob. So he was very, very lucky because he did get a format and everything was still the same that Bob created. So thank you, Bob Horn, and thank you, Dick Clark.
And that was the thing about Dick that, came across to me, was that not only, as you said, I think he truly worked hard at his craft, whether it was hosting, producing. Of course, it'll be probably another 20 or 30 years before we have someone that says, geez, Dick who on New Year's Rockin' Eve? I mean, right up until the end, he carried on with that, and of course so many game shows. But you got the sense that Dick really knew that, like I think most of us who succeed at something, there's a few luck of the draw, a few breaks along the way as well.
Oh yeah, definitely so. But he was very driven. Bandstand was his baby, and he made it last. It was quite incredible.
Yeah. Bunny Gibson joining us for the hour here on Studio 411, actress as well as former bandstand dancer on the old American Bandstand, for those of you who I'm sure remember that. One other thing before we move away from the bandstand years. Julian Bond, who was a late Georgia politician, legislator, civil rights leader, also later former NAACP leader as well. I was like, wow, Julian Bond, what does he have in common with Bunny Gibson? Well, I guess he sent you a letter years ago that you have. And tell us a little bit about that. I thought that was quite, again, another tribute to you in terms of almost how he felt about you, and I'm sure what you inspired him in some way.
Well, when he watched Bandstand, he said that his first heroes were us, the regulars, dancing on American Bandstand, because he knew that even though we were all white, the fact that we were dancing to black music would help integration. Now, a second hero was Rosa Parks. So, I mean, that is quite an honor. And I wrote Julian, and I talked to him, and I invited him to one of our anniversary shows, and I sent him a whole big package of all pictures and memories of us dancing on Bandstand. And he said it landed on his doorstep just when he had gone to speak to a university about his young days. Wrote me the letter and thanked me, and I treasure that. He was a good man. He put 67 civil rights bills through Congress, and I was glad that I was able to touch him in that moment.
And also Julian Bond, I don't know if you recall, in the late 70s when the show started, he hosted an episode of Saturday Night Live, which, was pretty...
Whoa,
yeah.
That's something.
It was
that's
during
good.
that Aykroyd
Whoa.
Belushi years, the first 5 years. I want to say they might have been season 1 or 2. And I remember watching it, and I knew the name, but it was like, who is this? But, Lorne Michaels, even in those days, would have people that sometimes you wouldn't, like almost like a square peg in a round hole, but he made it work because he was an intelligent man. Obviously, you know that, and and he had a good sense of humor. And again, it wasn't just the Richard Pryors, the Chevy Chases, the Bill Murrays of the world. He carried it off very well, and I always remember that about the man. And as you said, quite a civil rights leader in his own right. Jumping ahead, keeping with dancing and the Dick Clark theme, this I did not know. I missed this. In 2014, not as a contestant, but I guess as a tribute thing, you were on Dancing with the Stars?
Yes, they asked me to help organize the dancers from American Bandstand and myself to come as a tribute to Dick Clark. So we had dancers representing from all the different generations, from the 50s to the 80s, right, almost to the 90s. And there were 20 of us, and we went there. And Actually, we were supposed to dance, but the number that they gave as a tribute was very, very long, and there wasn't enough time for that. But we did get a chance, and we were highlighted, and that felt good that we were a part of that. We were on Dancing with the Stars, and I talked to Carrie Anaba, and she said to me, if it wasn't for American Bandstand, there wouldn't be a Dancing with the Stars.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you're out there in the public eye. Why don't you you not audition, or however they recruit the quote celebrities that they use on the show? Why don't you go on the show? They had Jennifer Grey, who did a couple of numbers with Patrick Swayze. I've seen you dance on TV, even recent clips. You know, you Jitterbug, Stroll. I mean, my goodness, they had Buzz Aldrin and Cloris Leachman in their 80s. My goodness, you've got 25 years on them younger. I mean, you could certainly do that with no problem at all. You should audition for that.
Well, you know, that is in my bag of my bucket list and my dreams to do. And you just might be hearing that, Larry. And I for a moment, I just wanted to show you my partner that came and represented the 50s at Dancing with the Stars, and this was Steve Colinero.
Okay.
Can you see?
You want to back it up just a little bit. There we go. Okay.
That good?
And that's you. That's you. He's dancing with right there.
Yeah, that was taken on the camera.
Wow.
And my other dance partner was Eddie Kelly.
Eddie Kelly.
You can
there
see
you
that.
go.
You see that?
You've
That
got a
skirt?
dentine smile. You see, now I know why you did all those commercials. You had a dentine smile. There you go.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now moving to some more serious matters. Again, you, especially over the last 20, 25 years, become an advocate for many causes that are near and dear to you. But actually, first, before we do that, tell me a little bit about the jacket behind you so I don't forget about that.
Okay. This is a rock and roll jacket, and let's see here. It even has Bunny. You see that?
I hear an alarm going off. They're not robbing your car as we speak, are they?
No. They're the urban crickets, and nobody pays attention to them.
Just looking out for your well-being.
Jacket and shirts and T-shirts and sweatshirts. I'm working with Frank Kona, and we're making these, and they're like the real deal, and they're just so much fun. And when you wear them, everybody gives, they turn their head when they see it, and.
So if I were to get one of those with the name Bunny on it, I'd be the hit at my workplace, wouldn't I?
I guess so. Well,
yes.
You have your own name, but who has these jackets? Frank told me today, Bob Larrivee, who is Mr. Autoramo of the car, and he made him a car club jacket. So we make them all special designed. And if you want a jacket, a T-shirt, or whatever, just email me at bunnygibson.com.
There you go.
We'll do it. We'll bring it back to the 50s.
Yeah. You know the ones I used to like? Do you remember the old David Letterman show when he was on NBC? He had that cool jacket. It was kind of a two-tone or three-tone, the brown sleeves with the late night logo. I always wanted one of those. But see, I'll get a Bunny one. There you go. So
right. Yeah. You can have a Larry one.
I can hear them now. You're Bunny now. So.
Right.
Anyway,
exactly.
I digress to more serious matters. Tell me about. I was very touched by a story several years ago. Two actually that came to mind. One was a man you came upon sleeping under the Santa Monica Pier. Tell me about.
Wow. You did your research.
You had come back from Europe and all of a sudden you come across this, and I gather I got the impression this was like, wow, how can this be? Maybe you had never been exposed to a situation like that, but tell me about what an impact that made on you.
Well, I was walking by the pier not thinking that there was a man who made his home in the bushes right behind there, and he looked at me, and I said hello, and I gave him a smile, and he then said to me, "Thank you." And my eyes welled up. I was just ready to cry that this man was just so grateful that I recognized him and acknowledged him. And that began a lot of work that I did for the homeless. I went downtown LA and went under the bridges. It's amazing. You're driving on a car on top of the bridge. You don't know how many homes there are underneath. And I did a documentary, and I actually stayed at a shelter because I wanted to experience what they experienced.
Right.
And it was not easy. I was on the top bunk, and I didn't sleep much that night, I'll tell you.
It's amazing to think that in the country as prosperous as we like to think that this country is, and I truly think it is, that these things happen. As a kid growing up, you always one impression thing that impressed me was I remember Robert F. Kennedy back in the mid-'60s. He was in Mississippi and he's looking around, and there's a great classic piece of footage where he's actually kind of like almost comforting a young boy, and he's looking around, and I think that's really where kind of his policies or his way of thinking changed after seeing what poverty that there was in this one particular state, and all of a sudden just made a huge impression even on me. I think Bunny had to run off to the left, so we'll fill while she's waiting. www.bunnygibson.com. And she went and got something else. Oh, you got one of your.
I lifted it up. This is one of my sculptures. You
Oh.
asked me before.
Okay.
Huge. Okay, I did it.
Okay, no, you're a sweetheart. I thought I was going to have to fill. I thought maybe you had to nature call or something, but no, that's great. There you go.
I thought to myself, keep on talking, Larry. I can make it. I can do it.
And now, what did you call that? Does it have a name? I mean, it kind of looked like I don't know. I have a couple of visions of what that reminded me of.
Well, I didn't give it a name, but people said that there was a huge sculpture actually in Germany that in the park that was similar to that I didn't know.
Okay.
But I'd go to the scrap yards and put all these pieces together, and just love doing these big pieces.
So now when I see something that looks a little kind of avant-garde that's made out of nuts and bolts, and I'm thinking of one here and not too far from where I live, I'm going to take a snapshot and send it to you, and then give you some ideas and say, I can do better than that.
Oh, okay.
To get you started on another career, but that's great.
Yeah.
Tell me, too, about your work with foster children. I know in my life I've been exposed to teenagers in my youth as well as adults in my adulthood that, came from troubled situations and then found happiness with foster parents. Tell me about some of the work you've done with foster children as well.
Well, you can see a lot of that on my website. If you go to Bunny Gibson Day of the Child, you'll see one of the events that I did, and I've been doing for 13 years. My way of giving back the joy of dancing, I've been doing dance contests for foster children, and it truly is, I'm the lucky one. That not more so than even the kids, because I get a chance to see them through dance. In the beginning, they don't want to get up, they don't feel good about themselves, but once they get up on stage and start dancing, I get to see their free spirit and their happiness and their joy of being. And at the end, I can hardly get them off the stage. And each one in my contest, I call it a contest, but they're all winners. All they have to do is shake their booty, I tell them. That's the only requirement. And all of them go home with presents, and then I give them medals that says winners and winner. And I say to them, look, if I meet you, like when you're 25, you better still have that medal and know that you're a winner all the time. So
there was an image.
I have so much fun.
There was an image I saw, I guess, at one of the events. Actor David Arquette was at one of the contests or events that you had. So obviously reaching out to other fellow celebrities to help out as well. So that's great.
And he helped me a great deal. He donated lots of T-shirts.
There you go. And the other thing too now with education, again, I know some of it stems from even the the appearance you did back, oh my goodness, when was that, where you did that piece for that book and Peter Jennings interviewed you.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy of the book by chance or
Well,
no?
I have. This is the
There you
one,
go.
the Century,
Yes,
that
there you go.
they actually, and the bigger one is for the adults, but this younger one they use in schools across America. And for anyone who's listening, their kids when they're in high school and social studies will use this book. And one of the questions they ask them is, "How are times different now than it was for Bunny Gibson?" So I have welcomed kids across the country. I've helped them with their book reports and their theses and whatever to help them with understanding that era compared to now.
And
And
also,
it's fun.
and
It gets
also,
me in touch with the teens.
and also in turn to show also the youth of today, regardless of whether it's here or out on the left coast and middle America as well, that again, you had your share of some hardships and situations that maybe weren't pristine, but you didn't let that stop you. You found a way. The example that I always use to people, especially young people, is retired General Colin Powell, again, who came from a rough background in Harlem, and then look how he became a success story, and he didn't let his environment or just his surroundings bring him down. In your case, the surroundings were perhaps a little better, but the thing was you still had some obstacles to overcome, and you've done tremendous. And now she's all over the place on Glee. How I Met Your Mother. My goodness, Strong Medicine. I saw a great picture that you sent me with a guy who actually harkens back to that bandstand era, not physically, but in terms of a movie of his that I love, Steve Guttenberg, a great movie that he did back in the day called Diner. I don't know if you ever saw that. Just a who's who, Kevin Bacon, Mickey Rourke, Daniel Stern, Ellen Barkin, Steve Guttenberg. It just tremendous, and it was set in the late 50s. It had kind of that bandstand feel in terms of, the what was going on, the times, the dancing, and everything else. And you've been working with him on a movie, I understand.
Yeah, I just finished that, and it's a comedy, and I was one of the Yentas, and I loved working with him. I would say he's a mensch.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one point where we were all rehearsing our scene, and we were lacking one chair, and he had been sitting. There was a lady up. He refused to sit down. He made sure. He said, "Look, I'm just an actor." I mean, he just truly is a nice guy. Totally had fun on this film.
And for those who say, geez, I know the name, well, think Police Academy. My goodness, I think 4, 5, 6 police academies. As I said, Diner, of course, one of my wife's favorites, 3 Men and a Baby, and then 3 Men and a Little Girl. And I keep hearing they're going to do a sequel. I wish I knew that, because they were supposedly working on a script to get he and Ted Danson and Tom Selleck, and I assume Nancy Travis, who was in that movie as well, something like 3 Men and a Grandbaby or something. But they better do it fast, because my goodness, they're all so busy. I don't know how they'd have the time to do it. So now, what are you working on right now that you can talk about? Never stop.
I I also work a lot with my little gray wig. 1 second.
Oh.
This is like
www.bunnygibson.com. I know you have your own custom wig. There you go. Okay.
Right, I've got a couple gray wigs. This is for like old, but then the other one is really old. And I use the one that was really old, and I play Granny Uber.
Okay.
We don't use the name Uber, but I only pick up people who from bank robberies or have to get away really fast. It's hysterical, another comedy,
There you go.
And I'm doing this weekend a pilot called The Haunt. And I'm going to be a regular person, and then I turn into the witch.
There you go. Hold that wig up again.
And the chin.
Hold that wig up again. I want to see that. I might need one of those one of these days. I can play Larry Uber. Okay, you think that? We'll just change the name of the show. Yeah. Oh my goodness! All right, in our remaining moments, I know Bunny has to leave in a few moments, so we're going to kind of get to the last couple of things. A couple of people I have to ask again, just some of them sometimes are a little offbeat or bizarre, but I know you did a lot of talk shows in your career, and you'll do more. Two gentlemen, Morton Downey Jr. Again,
Oh,
back in the late '80s, early '90s. I mean, he was like off the hook, as they say.
yes.
And but I think a lot of that was all bluster. Was he really that crazy of a guy? And when you dealt with him,
Yeah, he was wild, but the subject matter was, everybody is who's American. If you're German, if you're Italian, who's the real American? And I just stood up and I said, we're all Americans. I mean, we're talking to me who's illegitimate, and they're fighting who's American. So I had my piece there, but yeah, his show was a little wild. It's not as bad like as Jerry Springer today.
yeah.
Not in that capacity, but he was wild.
Morton sounds like he'd fit very well in some debates that I've been seeing on television.
Probably would.
Oh my God.
I want to show you.
Yes.
I've got more things.
Yes, there you go.
I
Love
came
it.
prepared.
Love it. Absolutely. I
My
love it.
paper doll.
Love it. Bunny paper doll. So this was actually something that kids could buy back in the day, back in the early 60s?
Well, no, it was made a little bit after that for
Right.
me. But I thought that was fantastic, and this is right from a magazine to show you the height of how popular we were. Fan clubs.
Yeah, because I had read that you guys were like they had like a survey or a ranking, and you and a couple of the others were like right up there with Fabian and Elvis. I mean, it was crazy,
Right.
you know.
There's Elvis right here.
Yeah.
I have two fan clubs. Mine was 25 cents. His was $1. But at
Wow.
least I'm on the same page.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like almost like the frenzy in the earlier years of American Idol and a few things like that. But of course, you know, the bandstand thing, of course, just, you know, went on for so many years. Lastly, I'm going to ask you a guy that was very popular in this area for, my goodness, almost 50 years, Joe Franklin. How did you meet Joe?
Oh, he was sweet in New York. Oh, God. I just met him through friends and should have seen his office. Talk about pack rats and hoarders. I mean, I had to walk this tiny little aisle in and out to get anywhere, and then stacked with boxes. But a super, super, super nice guy who really cared about his guests, really cared about his audience.
He was eclectic, you know. He was kind of I always like a poor man's Carson, but I mean that in the most complimentary way, because he'd have some of the most, you know, kind of almost like I think on this show, you know, we have people that kind of come from all walks of life that I find interesting and have a fascination to learn more about. And I think Joe was that way. I mean, he'd have perhaps you on one, and then 15 minutes later, he'd have somebody from the silent era, and then he'd have somebody from like a newcomer, because he was very good. I mean, people like Barbra Streisand and countless others, Lainey Kazan, you know, comedians that some of them made, unbeknownst to some of the bigger shows who think they made their first appearances on the old Channel 9 WOR, Joe Franklin, and in those days he had a radio show on too. So I mean, he was kind of like a latter day what Larry King later was, kind of TV show, radio show, and then I don't know how they did it, but I guess when they love what they do, you know, it's very easy,
Yeah.
very easy. Just like you seem to love what you do, and you exude just a tremendous energy and just a warmth, and we appreciate you taking time to join us. And I'm just gonna. Now, do you have it?
Has to do with no matter what, you keep on dancing. No matter what, I've always had hope in my life and in God. And if there's still a brightness and whatever about me, it's those things that give me my strength.
Bunny Gibson, quoted by someone who said that Bunny was one of TV's first reality stars, and also known as Queen of the Hop. www.bunnygibson.com. And Bunny, we appreciate you being on the show, and we look forward to having you back when you have some more stuff that you want to talk to us about. And I know you have to run, so we're going to we're going to kind of break, and then we'll get back to wrap up the show. So we will
Can I
see you
show
soon.
you something?
Absolutely, we got more stuff.
I want
Absolutely.
to show the audience, this is a real membership card. This is what we used to get into the show, and when we were regulars, all we had to do was just walk in, and I thought the fans, the audience, would like to see that.
So this is the original.
This is the original.
Wow! And
yes,
what did
it
they?
is.
So in other words, it was kind of like a library card. You had to have that, or did they give you one
if
each?
this was, I could get in on a certain day. It says here February 8th. They would give that out. But the committee could just, once you became a regular, you just walked right in.
Wow!
And I wanted to show you Bunny here. This is what Don Travarelli, I guess, he fell in love with this girl. Don't know why. and this is from 16 magazine. As the fans would know, they would run to the Here I Am, and here's Dick Clark.
Just pull
Bobby
that back.
Darren.
Pull that back 1 second. I want to just see some of the names. The young lady there, Deborah Wally. Do you know that she is a native of Bridgeport, Connecticut? She was actually passed away, unfortunately, about 10 years ago, at a young age. She, of course, was Gidget and did several others, was in some of the Beach Party movies. I see Bobby Darin, Pat Boone. I don't know that Mike Delara. I don't know who that is.
Oh, Mike Delara was a dancer.
Oh, a dancer. I see.
Regular.
George Maharis, of course, from Route 66. Also, he had a ill-fated singing career at best. A couple of people next to Dick Clark, Richie Spina, is that how I pronounce it?
Yeah, he also was a dancer.
And then on the bottom,
right up there with him.
Who do we have on the bottom there? I can't quite see that. That's
Bobby Rydell.
Bobby Rydell, yeah. And Bobby, you know, he's undergone. I don't know if you still stay in touch with any of these fine folks. Like I know you've Chubby Checker you've seen, but Bobby Rydell, my goodness, he's had quite a few health issues the last couple of years, and he's rebounded and is out there performing again.
It's dancing, it's music, it's rock and roll. It keeps us young, you know. It does. It keeps us young.
So I was going to ask you for a parting comment, but I think that's it. Is dancing and what you're doing is the best medicine for Bunny Gibson.
Yes, and I think finding whatever way it is to give back, whether it's to young people or old people or the homeless, in the giving, there's so much joy. So no matter what, for all of us, keep on dancing.
www.bunnygibson.com. Bunny, thank you again, and best of luck in your future endeavors, and we will be in touch for sure, all right? Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
I got tons of other stories, but we can't tell them
There you go.
now.
Hang tight 1 second. That's it for this episode of Studio 411. We thank Bunny Gibson for joining us, and we thank you for being a part of the show as well. We look forward to seeing you next time, and have a great week.
Okay. Oh.